Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the English news from Djibouti channels. Here are the headlines of our edition tonight. The main titles are: an international film improving the leader's landscape of Djibouti's print and audiovisual media. On continental news, in Tunisia, the second round of the presidential election is scheduled for 30 October. Welcome if you join us. The President of the National Assembly, Mr. Mohammed Ali Hamad, received the official visit of a high-level delegation from the United States State Congress, led by the Honorable Karen Bath. For more details, let's follow this report.
The official visit of high level of delegation of the United States Congress, led by Honorable Karen Bass, and the participation of the following parliamentarians: the Honorable Ilhan Omar, Choila Jackson Lee, Hank Johnson. As a prelude to the discussion, the President Hamid was pleased to welcome in public visit of U.S. Congress delegation. He recalled the genesis of Djibouti-American relations, especially since strengthening of ties between our two countries since September 11, 2001, and the establishment of American base in Djibouti. In addition, the President of Assembly, the head of U.S. parliamentarian delegation, the second Deputy Speaker of Parliament of Djibouti, and their colleagues in U.S. delegation successively exchanged views on the state of bilateral relations in general and links to the parliamentary cooperation in particular. During this interview, other topics related to sharing and institutional exchange were discussed: the strengthening of inter-assembly relations, consultation and the protection of human rights, consolidation of investment, and free zone. At the end of the meeting of more than half an hour concluded by symbolic gift offered to the guests and the national representation, the President of Assembly and the audience proceed last in the ritual official photos.
The Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, Mr. Mahmoud Ali Yusuf, received yesterday the high-level delegation of the United States House of Representatives. Many delegations of the United States House of Representatives was there.
Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, Mohammed Ali Yusuf, received yesterday a high level of delegation of the House of Representatives of United States, led by in the charge affair of United States Embassy in Djibouti, Mr. Alexander Hamilton. Several themes include the intensification of economic cooperation between two countries were discussed during this meeting. The support that the United States is able to provide to the Republic of Djibouti in the context of permanent mobilization for humanitarian assistance to the various populations of this region. Ilhan Omar, a native of neighboring in Somalia, is the perfect example that a person's success and success depend how persevering they are.
The Minister of Interior, Mr. Momin Ahmed Sheikh, received also in his office the Secretary General of Humanitarian Affairs and Deputy Emergency Relief Coordinator of the United Nations Officer for the Coordinator of Humanitarian, Mrs. Ursula. For more details, let's follow the report of Idris.
Interior Minister received yesterday from the Secretary of General of Humanitarian Affairs and Deputy Emergency Relief Coordinator of United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, Mrs. Ursula Miller. The Assistant Secretary General was introduced to the Minister of Interior by Barbara Mansi, resident of Coordinator of United Nations Systems. Also participating in this meeting were Honors Executive Secretary Mr. Hussein Hassan Darar and the Executive Secretary of Risk, Disaster and Management, Mr. Ahmed Mohamed Madar. After welcoming Mr. Ursula Miller, her delegation, a brief presentation was made explaining the of humanitarian issue facing the Republic of Djibouti, the issue of humanitarian emergency, a regional conflict, epidemic and caused by climate change and the fight against malaria. Indeed, this harsh climatic condition associated with the conflict, insecurity, extreme hardship, and refugee to Djibouti.
Djibouti is exposed to extreme weather events, could it be drought or floods, and we discussed the plans of the government to be prepared to respond to natural disasters. We also learned about the government of Djibouti's efforts to respond to the refugees. Djibouti is generously hosting 30,000 refugees, and I learned that 100,000 migrants are passing through Djibouti. So what is the government's effort to support the humanitarian needs of these people? And I was very impressed to hear about the very effective response to meet the humanitarian needs of the people that are so generously hosted in this country. It's a model, an exemplary model how Djibouti is hosting refugees and caring for the people that are in this country because they are displaced either to violence or drought or conflict or migrating.
The Minister of Communication in charge of Post and Telecommunication, Mr. Radwan Abdullahi Bahdon, made a statement this morning on the reform and revitalizations of the communication sector with proposal for organizational and editorial institutional reform are underway.
À Djibouti, les perspectives de croissance économique ont soutenu la modernisation de la communication, de la réglementation du paysage audiovisuel.
In Djibouti, the prospect of economic growth have support modernization of communication, the regulation of audiovisual landscape, and digital space, as the Prime Minister pointed out in his general policy speech at the opening of National Assembly budget in the last Thursday. This national commitment has also resulted in the acceleration of activities carried out as a part of revitalization of communication sector. At the sectoral level, action have already been taken upstream. We are still working and achieve all these objectives. To this end, my department has launched a project to reform the writing press and audiovisual media, the aim which be take the necessary measure to harness this sector of economic development in digital age. To this end, the Hague Committee to reflect on way and mean of enhance that rule of media has been set up by me. In particular, he is responsible for reflecting and proposing institutional organization and editorial reform. Public service broadcasting is currently facing difficult circumstances largely to the phenomenal evolution of Internet. Today in Djibouti, no one is unaware that television has been the background to the phase of digital technology, though to the facial networks, which have become the main of source of information. Based on this observation, project to reform the audiovisual sector has been devised in order to enable national television to regain the position of occupied before invention of digital technology. Since its creation, RTD has been able to develop and multiply its field of activity, setting to this end the multiplication of national channels, the total coverage of national territory, and the imminent transition of digital television. RTD plan to set up correspondent in country in a region such as Somalia, Ethiopia, and Kenya. Thus, we have placed particular emphasis to idea which plan to be one of pillar of information in Djibouti. The new vision includes the expansion of agency quality media service as well. It will collect which will be equipped with the necessary means to provide diversified coverage in all areas of current affairs. The ILA will also subsequently exchange view with the other organs of Djibouti writing press. Also among the action initiated of this sector, it planned to broaden the range of publication of method, notably with the launch of national telephone application and multiplication of physical point of sale, and encourage national dissemination in this guarantee generalized access to the information. In conclusion, we are convinced that this project to rebuild the audiovisual and writing press in Djibouti.
The Minister of National Education and Vocational Training, Mr. Mustafa Mohamed Mahmoud, offered a visit from Kripen to the delegation led by the Ethiopian Party, his Ethiopian counterpart, Mr. Germi Uluka. On arrival, the delegations were welcomed by the Director General of CRIPEN, Mr. Saeed Noor Hassan, who proposed a guided tour of the center. The visit began with a review of the timeline from the creation of CRIPEN in 1990 to curricular reform and revision, as well as editorial productions from the oldest to the most recent. It was an opportunity to revisit the highlights of the center, starting with the first textbooks published in Djibouti by local experts and authors following the État General of the Education in December 1999. The success reform are especially the curriculum revision that led to the publication of the new textbook and integration of language teaching and an early stage, as well as the digital age and the digitizations of textbooks were largely explained to the delegation. The Minister of the Education stressed the importance to visit too many institutions who involve to improve the national educations.
This morning we visited to Ministry of Education for Djibouti, and we discussed very important issues about how to collaborate on education, not only between Ethiopia and Djibouti, but also that can integrate Horn Africa. As a part of this discussion, we visited this center, which is very interesting center, and on which we learn, even took experience that we can promote in Ethiopia such kind of center. Of course we do have, but we can add new values that we have observed from this center, how to prepare textbooks and soft copy and whatever you have, and also the television transition centers, and everything is very important, and I am happy, I'm delightful for those who invited us. Thank you, have a nice time. Thank you, God bless Djibouti and the Djibouti.
The Minister of the Education thanks to his Ethiopian minister counterpart to visit, and highlighted the importance to work together to enhance the education system between the two countries. The General Zakaria Sheikh Ibrahim, General of Staff of the Army Forces in Djibouti, received in his office the new French ambassador accredited to Djibouti, Mr. Arnaud. This first courtesy visit is part of the new French ambassador tour with the country's authorities to make contact following his recent appointment. After the word of welcome by the Chief of General Staff of the Army Forces in Djibouti, line of exchange and encounter General Zakaria Sheikh Ibrahim held in these days of French national exchange to express on behalf of all the Djibouti defense and security forces the most heartfelt condolence following the death of former French President Jacques Chirac. This relationship of cooperation, said the general, and exchange has also expanded in the military field, accentuated by the exchange of visits carried out during 2018 between the General Zakaria Sheikh Ibrahim, Chief of General Staff of the Army Forces, and the French counterpart, General Lecointre. All this demonstrated the excellence of the bilateral relation between the two countries. The Djibouti Football Federation held the closing ceremony last night for the presentation of 2018-2019 session winner at the Campeski Palace Hotel. The ceremony took place in the presence of the President of the National Olympic Committee, Mrs. Asha Ali Garad, and the President of the Djibouti Football Federation, Mr. Suleiman Hassan. Waberi, and the sport director, Mr. Abshir Ali Hassan, and the former president of the Djibouti Football Federation, Mr. Hussein Fadul, and former player, Mr. Amarre Ali Saeed, and the Federation Djibouti of Football Technical Directions, and many others, member of the Federation's Djibouti of Football Executive Committee, and all the participants. The ceremony began with the national anthem and was followed by a documentary presented by the Djibouti Football Federation on the most important project completed last session. At this award ceremony, prizes were awarded to teams and players, as well as special prizes to guests and members of the football family. A team of the National Agency for Disabled Persons traveled to Ali Sabih region. The main purpose of their missions was about register people with disabilities who do not have a foot or leg and who need a prosthesis. This is the first step of project that will soon be carried out in Djibouti in collaboration with the Jibur Foot organization based in India. Is the context that the ANPH team traveled from 15 to 25 September to the region of the Jorha, Oboh, RTD, as well as Ali Sabih. The progress of these missions was carried out in good condition thanks to the welcome and support of the local authorities who received well during the visits. Mrs. Hamd Aden Abdurrahman, who has been missed from her home for more than a month, the daughter of Mrs. Lula Amar, and the young Hamda Aden left her home care on the evening of September 1st in Balbala and has not reappeared since. Anyone who has seen or has information about the young girl Hamda Aden is asked to contact the following number 77469783 or 77307831 if necessary to take it back to the nearest police stations. And now let's move on continental news. The Tunisian electoral authorities confirmed on Wednesday, October, that the second round of the presidential election will take place on Sunday, October 30, and that the election campaign will begin on Thursday. This duel will pit controversial businessman Nabil Qarawi, accused of tax fraud and money laundering and currently in prison, against independent academic Qais, who came out on top on 15 September. To the general surprise on Tuesday, the court rejected a new request for the businessman's release. The spokesman Hatim Mliki called for the second round of the presidential election to be suspended while the candidate is in prison. Here we arrive at the end of this news edition. Thank you for watching us. Goodbye.